Well, we're finally here. We just got the trailer for the next season of Percy Jackson, and I gotta say, I'm pretty hyped up. A couple of months ago, we got the first look trailer, and things were looking pretty good, not gonna lie. I was really liking the signs. We've since had more casting news and whatnot that I think has had people a little bit concerned, but for the most part, I've been able to put that to one side. I will say that it does seem as if there's been an uptick in negativity towards the franchise in the last year or so, maybe. I think that when the show first came out and in the time that followed, whilst there were complaints, of course, at the same time, there was just a lot of hype that Disney had picked up the show and fans were going to get the adaptation they'd always dreamed of. After all, whilst the first film was actually pretty good, all things considered, we all know that it wasn't really that good of an adaptation. Then I think the second film was none of those things at all, and we saw the film franchise crash and burn. So I think that since this was advertised with the idea of it being a far more faithful adaptation, and with Rick confirmed to be a big part of it this time around, people probably treated it with the kids' gloves at first. And since then, as time's passed on, we've seen more and more discontent in the fan base. There are a couple of more bits of info surrounding casting and whatnot recently that I did see get people's hackles up, and we'll touch on that just now, shall we? Okay, so it's been a good long while since this news came out, but we'll start with the Artemis and Zoe Nightshade castings. So these are characters that are going to be making their debut in season 3. We have Daphne Keane as Artemis, and I think this is probably some of the best casting for the show we've seen yet. We have a decently prominent name who's been in a number of other fairly big franchises before, and who's a quality actress to boot. She was great in Logan and then in Deadpool and Wolverine. I thought she was really good in His Dark Materials, and now I think she's going to be good here, although it's not like it's a very big role, is it? I mean, she is older than Artemis generally appears in the books, but at the same time, you kind of have to understand that if you cast a 12-year-old to play the character who's meant to look like that eternally, then you're going to run into the problem of them constantly aging out of the role. Same with the casting for Zoe Nightshade. Sarah Chaudhry's 21, so not 14 or so, but I don't know, I don't think it matters all that much. As long as they sort of look young, you can 100% get away with this type of thing. Hell, grown adults have been cast as teenagers since the dawn of cinema, and that's not something that's seemingly going away. I think these are both examples of good casting, and they were both received well. What was less well received, though, is the casting of Kate McKinnon as Aphrodite. I'll be honest, when I first saw this news, I did audibly groan. Look, I have nothing against this actress as a person, I'm sure she's great. All I know is that one time she was cast in a movie where her character was meant to be from Australia, and she attempted the accent, and it was bad. Like, noticeably bad. She then went and did an accent on Jimmy Fallon or something, just doubling down, and it was the shits, man. That is my irrational reason to never want to watch her in anything at all. I've also seen a lot of discussion that perhaps she doesn't have quite the right look or vibe for the character, and to be honest, I thought the point was that she looks different to everybody based on their preferences. I'd always sort of imagined that this would mean they'd be able to be clever and have a lot of different cameos to play the part. I guess not, though. Still, this is probably my least favourite piece of casting, to tell you the truth. I just think they've made a lot of really good choices when it comes to the casting, and yet here, they've made a pretty baffling decision. A lot of people have said that she does seem to play very similar characters in everything she's been cast in before. The common theme, of course, being zany. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think about Aphrodite from the books, the last thing that comes to mind is the word zany. It just feels like a very weird choice. Maybe she does play against that stereotype, though, and does something more in line with the book. It's just an odd choice. I guess we really will have to wait and see for this one. So then this leads us to the trailer, which released on the 7th of November, and has in the 2 days as of writing this, managed to get over 10 million views on YouTube. So that puts it well ahead of the previous teaser that we saw for this season, and also seemingly has put it on par with the teaser for season 1, but obviously that one got to 10 million over the course of its lifespan. This one took about 2 days, and so I do think that this is a definite showcasing of how the hype is growing, and that the release is hotly anticipated. Yes, there has been some pretty loud criticism, but at the same time, let's not forget the show was the most successful Disney Plus original series for the year of its release. It clearly got a lot of interest from both hardcores and the casuals alike, and I'm pretty sure it was beating out the likes of Star Wars in terms of viewership. I think that this season is clearly going to do well in terms of viewers, and that season 3 has the chance to go even bigger should season 2 turn out to be, at the very least, acceptable in terms of quality, which I think it will based on these trailers we've seen so far. So with all that being said, I suppose it's time to jump into this trailer, right, and see what we can find. We start off with a bit of narration from Percy, where he asks somebody, probably Annabeth and some other demigods, whether they get nightmares, as he usually has nightmares that help him tell the future. We see 2 shots of Percy alongside this. One of them is him in his dream world, where Grandpa Kronos likes to harass him like a big old creep, and the other was him at what I presume is camp, although I'm not too sure about that on second thought. The backdrop kind of seems wrong for that type of scene. I don't really know then. We move on to see Grover on the beach facing down the big tentacles like we saw in the teaser, and based on all of this, it seems like he was being hunted by some of Luke's followers, who caught up to him whilst he was off questing to try to find Pan. They try to kill him or capture him, probably capture because Luke seemed pretty upset that Shoes almost sucked him into Tartarus instead of Percy. He runs away, and this in turn leads them to the beach where they come across the Kraken thing, which in turn is going to straight up abduct Grover and drag him off. Is that how it happened in the books? I can't really recall. I thought he just got swiped by the Cyclops, but honestly, I don't think this change matters all that much so long as they keep the part where the Cyclops thinks he's a female Cyclops and is intending to marry him. That is the perfect type of ridiculous I think they need to keep, especially since they altered or removed a number of the sillier elements for book 1 when they adapted the first season of the show. Back to Percy Percy's narration, he finishes by saying that either his dreams show him the future or they try to kill him. We see a shot of a giant or something trying to smash him, which cuts over to Luke, who's seemingly trying to do the same. I'm thinking the big fella's going to be attacking Camp Half-Blood and testing its defenses now the tree's been poisoned. Luke? I don't know. In the previous teaser we saw a bunch of fights with him and Percy, so it's probably from one of those. Percy then falls out of his bed and he wakes up. We cut to Annabeth arriving at what I would guess is Percy's place in a taxi to pick him up, just like we saw during the teaser, asking if he had the same dream as her. Of course, he assumes it's about Grover, but Annabeth tells him it's about camp. This is when we start to dive into the drama about Camp Half-Blood a little bit. We get a look into the aftermath of the chariot battle, as well as seeing a bunch of bird monsters descending to attack the campers watching. We have Mr. D narrating over the top of a couple more scenes, with him saying that the danger the camp is under is greater than they can possibly imagine. At that point, we see a shot of Annabeth armored up, looking a bit worried. We see what I would presume is Kronos harassing Percy in his dreams again, and then it's over to Percy and Annabeth in the same clothes they were in when they met up in the city at the start of the trailer. Here, the big giant guy launches a molten rock at Percy, and it seemingly blasts off the barrier that protects the camp. Wait, is this meant to be the giant that attacks them when they're playing dodgeball and they're disguised as the other team, and then Annabeth saves them? Feels a bit like it is, right? Because when Annabeth pulled up on him and Tyson, I wasn't really sure it felt like they'd just avoided getting murdered. Plus, this same guy coming back and launching round molten rocks like a deadly dodgeball, it feels a bit samey if you had those two scenes. Hopefully this doesn't mean they've cut yet another goofy element of the story in favor of being a bit more serious. I mean, that opening is really fun. I'd be happy to be wrong, I'm just a bit worried about it all. Next, we cut over to the back of the taxi with Percy, Annabeth and Tyson all bundled up inside. Percy asks about Grover, so it's good to see that he doesn't just forget about his buddy being in trouble simply because Annabeth wants him to go to camp. The sisters claim to see all before Tyson skeptically mentions that they only have one eye. I wonder if this is him being snarky, given that that's not really how I remember his character being, or is it more that he's rather innocently wondering how it could be possible to see all when the three of them share a single eye? If I had to hazard a guess, I would say that it's likely going to be the latter. They then say, "Look who's talking," so this in turn once again makes me wonder, is this the reveal that he's a Cyclops? After all, Percy's sitting there staring at him rather intensely, almost like he's surprised by this. I do wonder, are they going to keep him feeling distant and embarrassed to have Tyson as a brother? Something I have noticed across the board is that they've softened a lot of the characterizations for the demigods right out of the gate. Luke is way more sympathetic and far less hateful, and they're leaning more heavily into the Percy and Annabeth stuff right from the get-go. I think they're really aiming to make you fully engage with and love the demigods, whilst playing up how awful the gods can be in their selfishness and detachment. I mean, remember that time that Athena just casually was going to let her daughter die to Echidna? It seems the taxi's going to function similarly to the night bus from the Prisoner of Azkaban. Well, except it doesn't take them fully where they need to go. I mean, it seems like they're going to speed them to where the road to camp ends and tell them to walk from there, because we see a lot of those other scenes where the trio are still in the same clothes, like running away from that giant guy who's lobbing rocks. They stumble upon Luke, who just finished poisoning the tree and who flies off on Blackjack the Pegasus. Hell yeah, Blackjack! This is probably one of the characters I'm most eagerly anticipating. I feel like animal companions are the perfect complement to any hero, but having them being able to do dialogue with each other, that's going to be a lot of fun too. Percy talks about how if the tree falls, then the barrier falls, then the camp's going to be open to any sort of attack. We see the giants trying to smash through, as well as Tyson getting blasted away by the barrier. So in the forest, I'm thinking they're going to walk through the forest, Tyson can't get in, Percy goes to help him, and this is when they get attacked by that one giant chucking rocks. I really do feel like they're going to be cutting the dodgeball scene based on that, just so they can get to the plot a lot faster. I don't know, it's a bit of a shame. The villain demigods are charging out of the mist, probably for some big climactic battle, before we see what Percy's big motivation is for this season, saving Grover. Obviously the whole tree thing is going to play a part, but that's incidental along the way. He more wants to save his friend. It does cut to Grover when his voice echoes in Percy's head, and he's gagged, but he's also seemingly wearing some white cloth. Please tell me that's a wedding dress. I think it then cuts to Polyphemus. He looks a lot smaller and less monstrous than I was expecting, to tell you the truth, but at the same time, I kind of get it. I do feel like it would be a bit strange to have one Cyclops look so different to Tyson. They kind of have to make them seem like the same species. It cuts over to the road again, where the giant's still pelting the trio as they're running for camp. Okay, so it seems like for some reason they're going to be dropped off a long way from the camp. They're going to have this dude turn up and start chasing them down, maybe with some friends based on some of the clips here in a very long protracted chase sequence that lasts all the way to the barrier. I actually think this is going to be the opening action sequence of the season. Honestly, based on the clips, I think we're mostly seeing stuff from the early episodes to begin with. I really like this. It's pretty nice that they haven't had to spoil the season to craft a compelling trailer to get you to watch. Tantalus tells them that they have to quest into the Sea of Monsters, and we get a little montage of the key players in the quest. Clarice, Percy, Tyson, and Annabeth. Of all these characters, I'm a little surprised that Clarice has barely had any screen time in the trailer so far. She's a pretty important character for the season, so I kind of expected she'd be spotlighted more here. Then again, trailers are supposed to draw interest and hype up the show, so you don't really want to overuse what has up to this point been a minor character who was in a couple of scenes in season 1. You want to focus on your big drawing characters. Guess I slapped down my own complaint there, didn't I? She does appear a bit more in the latter half of the trailer, but it's mostly just reaction shots. The music starts to build and we get a look at Clarice, one of her sailors, Clarice jumping around, Annabeth looking scared, scared, Percy looking, well, he doesn't look scared, but sort of serious. We hear a roar, we see a tentacle lifting somebody into the sky, Percy looking angry, and then Clarice screaming and firing some artillery. It's a lot of action, a lot of reaction, and I kind of suspect the majority of it is from the same scene. They're really maximizing the hype of this trailer using the absolute minimum amount of scenes. I love it. The next scene of note has a woman with a spear and shield facing down with two random blurry background characters. Okay, so is this supposed to be Athena? Bit old to be a demigod, and she does look like the actress they've cast. I guess I didn't expect to see her here though. I do like that they are integrating more of the gods into the story itself instead of having them going missing for seasons at a time. It just makes more sense that way in terms of fostering an on-screen bond and getting the audience to actually care about them as opposed to just being some sort of abstract figure, you know? Anyway, I could be wrong about who it is, but the shield is clearly the Aegis because it has the Medusa head on it. Do we reckon this is going to be set in the current time period, or is this going to be a flashback or something? There's a shot of Annabeth looking back from a little sailboat, which is intercut with a shot of this creepy little rock creature, and then Annabeth scuttling away. No idea if that's all going to be from the same sequence though. The settings for a lot of these scenes are so similar, and they wear the same costume the whole way through, so it can be really hard to differentiate between all the scenes. We move back to Percy at Camp Half-Blood saying that we take care of each other, probably hyping up the campers before he goes off to try to help Grover, before we see him facing down with Clarice like we saw in the teaser. There's a shot of Cersei and one of her guinea pigs, Polyphemus fighting, Ares and Clarice walking together. I'm pretty interested to see how that dynamic plays out, to tell you the truth. I really liked Ares in season 1. I thought Adam Copeland did a great job with the character. I honestly wonder how much of the show he's even going to be in. I know he was pretty much just a bit part of the book, so will they expand on him further to flesh out Clarice? Guess we'll have to wait and see. There's an explosion and a voice murmurs to kill the son of Poseidon. Probably Kronos whispering to Luke, right? That feels like it makes the most sense. Also, the guy playing Luke has really managed to get this venomous face filled with pain just right. I feel like he's going to be one of the standouts when we look back at this series when all's said and done. I thought he was great in season 1 and brought a massively sympathetic quality to the character. But here is where we're going to see the downfall as he becomes so much worse and less conflicted than he was before. We then get a bit of an action montage. We have the trio running down a hallway, probably escaping from Luke and his goons. We have some of the chariot race with Percy and Tyson, and they're smiling and having fun, which does indicate they're going to be changing up the dynamic a little bit to sand off some of Percy's edge. In this montage, there is a little bit of a showcase of both Tyson's strength and his goofiness when he batters some poor demigod off their chariot, but then he turns and apologizes. He seems like a character who's going to become massively popular with the wider audience. There's a big demigod fight at the camp, and it seems that Percy might actually get his ass beat here. I wonder what the context is going to be. I don't really remember the book too well. Was there a big demigod battle at this point? There's another look at Hermes, who a lot of online fans seem to not like the casting for dating back to season 1, but who I've actually rather liked so far. I hope to see a lot more of him. We see Percy hugging his mum, who becomes less and less relevant with every book, so I guess we'll see how they handle her here. I also like that we're seemingly getting a lot more Poseidon in this show. The fact that he's Percy's godly parent is one of the most defining elements of the entire story, and yet the dude goes missing for books at a time. Pretty sure he doesn't even appear in the Sea of Monsters book, so him appearing here is a good thing because it lets you develop and flesh out their relationship. Without that, why should we care at all? The trailer then finishes off with a big action sequence that seems one part horror, one part epic action adventure, with the crew of the ship getting pummeled by waves and maybe that sea monster from earlier, whilst Percy goes full lead protagonist mode and uses his powers to seemingly lift the ship from the sea with some water tornado thing. Looks like a very cool visual. Honestly, the visuals here do look really good. I'm thinking that with the success of season 1, the budget has increased for sure. If not, then I think that Disney is actually insane. We have a double episode debut on the 10th of December to look forward to, but I'd expect that's the last of it until then. Either way though, I'm hyped, and I think this season's going to be massive and potentially a jump up in terms of quality as well. With all that being said though, these have been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the trailer? Has it hyped you up for the season? Maybe not? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.